Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Weekly Wake Up, our opportunity for you, our employees, to be able to talk to the district administration about the important things going on throughout the school district. Today, I want to start with the fact that I hope that you had a great weekend. If you're counting down, it is 3 weeks until the end of the school year. But before everyone goes off to summer break, we do want to make sure that you're completely up to speed on the big things that are going on in the district. A few weeks ago, we did speak about the strategic plan, and this week we want to make sure that you're in the loop about the Enterprise Resource Planning System, also known as the ERP. You don't have to be a Trekkie. This has nothing to do with Starship Enterprise or sci-fi or anything like that. It has everything to do with trying to make our organization, and especially the work that we do in business services and human resources, more efficient and to serve our employees and BVSD better. As always, we are going to be taking questions throughout the show. If you have anything that you want to add, I want you to go ahead and send those in at bit.ly. That's bit.ly/BVSD-WakeUp. Again, one more time for those sleepy eyes, bit.ly/BVSD-WakeUp, and we'll be entertaining those throughout the course of the show. And without further ado, I do want to go ahead and stop sharing here. Was that actually on the screen, by the way? It doesn't look like it ever went.
No, it was not.
You could read my mind as I was spelling it out. Hopefully you wrote it down, but we can get back to that later. Every once in a while, I make the mistake of hitting the slide thing and thinking that it goes, and it didn't. So anyhow, not a big deal on a Monday morning, but we will get to meet our whole panel here now. I do want to start with Katie Mills. Good morning, Katie. How are you?
Good morning. It's so nice to have everyone with us today.
And why don't we'll have everybody kind of introduce also what their title is and what you do for the school district. That's okay too. I forgot to say
Sure.
that.
Good morning. I'm Katie Mills, Director of Professional Learning.
Perfect. Justin Petrone.
Hi, Justin Petrone, Director of Finance and Accounting for the district.
Perfect. Robin.
Good morning. I'm Robin Fernandez, the Assistant Superintendent for the East Network.
Good morning. Chris.
Good morning. My name's Chris Bowie, and I'm Manager of Business Information Systems.
All right. Lauren.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lauren Lowe. I'm the Recruitment Manager here in HR and the HR lead on this project.
Perfect. Amanda.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Bowie, and I am Business Analyst for the Supply Chain.
Thank you. David.
Yep, I'm David Wilson, and I'm a System Manager, System Administrator in the IT department.
Perfect. James.
Hi, I'm James Moore. I'm HRIS Specialist.
Perfect. Judy? Oh. Judy, can you hear us? There you go. Muted.
Yes,
Okay.
let's try that again. Good morning. Judy Diederich, I'm the Payroll Manager for the school district.
Perfect. Maria?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Wilson, and I'm the Director of IT Project Management and the Project Management on this wonderful project.
Good morning. And Karen, how are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm Karen Orderica. I'm an IT Project Manager, also supporting this project.
I wanted to make sure to get everybody introduced throughout the course of today. We're going to have different people kind of chiming in about different things. But right now, I'd love to start with Robin. This is a very large project. Can you kind of give us from the big picture what this is all about?
Yes, I'm really happy to. And first, belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend and a wonderful Mother's Day. So really, in the largest picture, if you will, what the ERP does is it finally digitalizes all of our processes. We have had over the years processes that are different in different departments, different in different schools, sometimes work efficiently, sometimes are a bit clumsy. And so now what we're doing is centralizing and digitalizing all of those. And there are going to be a lot of benefits when we get to this point, because as with all systems, as we think about going from older systems that don't necessarily talk to each other, that aren't always user-friendly for those on either the administrative end or on the employee end, the ERP is going to be much more friendly for all of us. And so frankly, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to provide us things like mobile access for our system, for our own information, like professional leave bank, how much leave do you have, ability to process payroll hours, ability to process all of your information that you as an employee or that we as employees need to interface with the system. And those people who are in charge of these processes will have much more real-time information. There will be real-time reporting. It's going to be much more streamlined hiring processes. The system will be much more reliable, thank goodness. Individual access, like I said before, to our own payroll and benefits information in real time without having to wait for information to get caught up to us. We're also, in a more compliance related area, we're going to meet regulatory requirements for items such as time tracking and grants, state and federal grants. And we're also going to have school-based requisition of supplies and services. So those are just some big level ideas or some big level concepts that are going to be much easier for us to use and much more streamlined and easier to understand.
Perfect. I know you and I were kind of talking before the show started about, it's a little bit like that old car that you loved. It really served us for a very long time. I don't think it got to the place that my last car did. Involved in an accident on graduation day and had a bumper that was sort of about to fall off. It's not that bad, but again, like the idea is that we're really going to be, we as an organization are really growing, and so we have new needs over time and those kind of things. And so I'd love to ask Katie, why was this change needed and why are we doing it now?
Sure, great question. We know it's been quite the last 18 months, and so we have received the question a few times about why now? Why are we adding more stress to the system? And it really goes back to, as Robin and Randy were saying, we've kind of duct taped things together a little bit and patchworked it. We're working in Apple Track for some of our needs. We work in Lawson, we work in My Passport, Time Clock Plus. So we have all these different systems that don't integrate and speak to one another. And so the goal with this project really is to bring everything under one umbrella in one system so that it increases our efficiency as a district, but also for our employees. It'll be much easier for you to find out what your benefits information looks like and things like that. So the main projects right now that are going to fold into this are Apple Track, Lawson, Time Clock Plus, and then for Classified and Proc-Tech, we will be moving your evaluations into the ERP system so that you're not working in My Passport and then also in another system. It's really about that consolidation. In addition, we'll be able to see the mandatory reporting through Public School Works, if you've completed those courses. And so it's a big change, we know, but at this point in time, it's really important and a pivotal time for us to bring everything together and move forward as a district.
I know that people probably, if you heard the name there, this is a system that we have used before, but it also is an upgraded version of it. For those that might not know, what will this upgrade do for us, Justin? Kind of a new world, right? Oh, and you're muted right now.
I knew that. I'm sorry, Randy. Yeah, you mentioned some of those other systems that we looked at. We are going with Infor. We are currently on Infor's older product called Lawson. And we mentioned it, this kind of old car thing, but this has been a long time in the coming. We've been thinking about this, working towards it, talking about it for probably at least 5 years, maybe longer. Some would recall. And not only is it old, but it's also not being supported at some point in the near future, which is really causing that some of the urgency and some of the why now. And so we did, back in 2018, so it feels like a long time ago, but we did go through, based on the size and scope and volume of the project, we went through kind of a full-blown RFP process, which is called a request for proposal, which means we asked all the biggest players out in the world and got a lot of responses. I think if I recall, we had 8-10 responses. And it was really months of looking through those systems, interviews, demos, and in fact, we had something north of 50 individuals from schools and departments. We would say end users, office managers, even principals, that were all part of that process to see the demos, kind of get a sense for how it works and feels, ask questions, provide feedback. And ultimately, we landed on the Infor Lawson product, which we're really excited about. It's still a completely different system, so it doesn't, the fact that it was sort of owned by the same sounds good. Maybe there's a little bit of familiarity, but it's really a brand new system with a whole lot of new bells and whistles, as they say.
Yeah, it seems like, when you are able to upgrade software these days, some of those like main ways of thinking may stay the same. So that might be helpful, right? And again, I don't know that much about this specific system, but then, the opportunities that it provides, oftentimes, the interfaces are a lot more sleek than they were, that many years ago when the last system were built. I know that there are some real benefits that we're looking forward to in terms of it eliminating manual entry, a lot of paper documents that we've relied on.
Yeah, really, and I don't want to sell this wrong. I mean, the current system that we're using is not terrible, right? Like, it's getting the job done in a lot of ways. We're achieving our goals, but it's significantly more clunky, if you will. And really what that means is that you can't really have everybody in the system because the interface is not great. It just doesn't really feel like what we're all used to in a web-based environment. So what that means is that we end up with only certain users in the system because it's so much more difficult. And so whenever we think about doing something in the system, it's a matter of someone at a school asking, or anywhere, right? But like you're asking someone to do something on your behalf. So you're maybe asking your office manager to help you do something, initiate something, and that might be with an email or whatever, or stopping by, and then you're asking someone else to do something, and then you're entering it into the system for us. So, I love to use an example of like, think about an employee reimbursement request. Say, we've all had this where you get miles or you bought something at the store and you get reimbursed. So we have lovely little forms on the website that say, here's how you do this, right? And this is the form you fill out. So we actually have, the school, like a teacher or anybody would go to an office manager. The office manager might print that out for them, right? And then they hand fill it out. And then we actually have an authorization piece, and oftentimes that might have been stamped with a stamped signature. And then we actually have our people mail that in, or like our drivers in the warehouse and such, and they bring that to us here in business services, and then we have that looked at and then manually entered into the system. And you can just imagine, all of the ways that kind of chaos can break down. There's so many points of communication, and when we think about the new system, the whole idea really, or to me, one of the big, huge benefits is that you're going to make it an easier system such that people can enter information or requests into the system themselves, and then it kind of gets processed and tracked in the system. So everybody's on the same page as what the next step is, who needs to do what's the holdup, where's the document, and so we really hope that that's going to streamline the whole process and just make life a little bit easier for everybody.
And I know when this kind of project gets underway, a big part of the effort right now is really about thinking through those processes, right? Thinking about, in each of these departments, and we're going to actually kind of dive into each of them and kind of talk about specifically how this is going to benefit them. But when you're looking at implementing something of this size, you really start to kind of look at it all afresh. You really start to kind of say, okay, if we're going to go through this payroll process, these are all the steps along the way. And then it gives you a real opportunity, right, to kind of be able to say, boy, we could do that better. Or, what if the employee has an opportunity to, just click on this button, get notified through email, or, I know one of the questions that we're going to talk about is how easy it will be, hopefully in the future, for people to get a hold of the documents that they need for taxes or for whatever. But again, it's the process right now as we're going through this is really one that helps to after all these years to really look at those processes again and go, are we doing it as well as we can? Well, I'm going to take that as a yes. But why don't we go into each of the different sections? Human resources. Lauren, you want to talk a little bit about what this will look like in your neck of the woods?
Absolutely. So I'll start with hiring. As I'm sure that everybody is aware, our job market right now is incredibly challenging. So it is imperative that our applicant experience is one that they walk away feeling good about and is not a cumbersome process that leaves people feeling kind of ghosted out in the system. So with this new system being out of AppleTrack and in a system that's all in one, it's going to do a lot of great things for our candidates. One is it's going to reduce that double entry. Candidates now, they'll enter their information into AppleTrack, and then when it comes time for pre-boarding and onboarding, then they're entering their name a million times, and that basic information that candidates now expect to be an easy click of the button, I give it to you once, we'll actually be able to deliver that transparency in the process for our candidates. It's going to improve our communication, not only to candidates, but also our users of where things are at in the process, because sometimes it can feel like it's in a black hole right now of I submitted a requisition or I applied for a job, where do I stand? And, so it will reduce that, being able to communicate with them. Also, for our benefits, as far as the process that we have now, we've moved into doing an electronic process for it, but it's not within the system. So it's just inherent to have some errors in that communication piece. For the manual side of things, it will remove that. And I think on the school user side, right, for whether it's a candidate outside, sometimes we only focus on our outside candidates, but as employees, when we want to apply for promotions and those other opportunities, we want to remove those barriers because we value our people and we don't want to waste people's time with having to enter information that we should already have. So this system will allow us to do that. So that's a couple high-level things. As far as across departments, budgeting, because we're all in the family and we're all in one system now, where for those of you that are entering requisitions and there's a disconnect between source control and human resources and where are things at in the process, it's really going to eliminate that so we can move quicker to onboard people and not lose our star candidates.
That's one of those big frustrations, is just that got to get checking with budget, and then you got, obviously you've got your stuff that you're doing with your applicants, and it all needs to come together, right?
Absolutely.
Justin, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how this will look in finance?
I'll try to do it with my microphone on this time. Yeah, so when I think about, there's a lot of little different things in finance, some kind of big, but when I think about all the finance piece of it, to me, it's all about getting information into the system more streamlined, quicker, and more accurately. And then getting it processed more quickly. And so, when I think through all the things, one of the first steps when we think about finance is getting money into the door. And so we're doing some really exciting things with various points that we bring money into the system. So a lot of you might be familiar with RevTrack. It's how we collect for student fees and groups and clubs and all those kinds of things. And they happen all the time throughout the district. And so we're actually in the process of kind of consolidating that. And doing some really neat things where we're going to be bringing the files in, say on a nightly basis, from RevTrack or some of the other points as well. But then also the banking side. So the bank has thousands of transactions on a daily basis, and so we're bringing all those in, and we're kind of training the system to recognize it all, and so that it's a much more streamlined process to make sure that all those pieces get into the right buckets or revolving accounts or wherever they're going at the end of the day, and getting them all in quickly. And at the end of the day, we know that people are tracking those balances due and the kids and who's paid and who hasn't and all that. And it's such an effort. And so the hope is that it becomes much more of a streamlined process, and literally say a day or two later, we got to let the banks do their thing. But a day or two later, you've got much better access into who's done what, so everybody knows where they stand financially. When we think about reporting, this kind of goes along the same way, but we're trying really, really hard to build a system where you kind of can get very easy access to information, whether you're a school office manager or you're just running a club or you're in athletics. But the idea being that you can get a very quick snapshot of the big picture, and then you can just very simply drill down to the next level, all the way down to figuring out exactly which kid paid or exactly what that cost was or what that charge was, with backup to support it. So just trying to create a system that's much easier to use. I think back a few years ago, but if you wanted to do all that, you literally had to click around like 6, 7 different places and reports and figure out where the payroll was, and you have no idea who that was. So hopefully it becomes all much more concise. We've mentioned payroll a couple of times, but I love to say this, but we pay, school districts generally are just notorious for paying people in very complicated ways, and it all makes sense. But the reality is it just makes it very challenging. Without those sort of systematic or consistent ways of bringing information into the system that we haven't really had, it's just such a manual process, and it becomes really just wrought for error. And it's so easy to miss things. Again, when you're waiting on someone to do something and you forgot to do this, and then it was late, and then we're doing all this manual stuff to get it all calculated correctly. So the new system will allow it to be streamlined much more significantly. So we're looking forward to that. Someone mentioned grants. That's another big one for us. In this world of all the federal funds coming in, and ESSER and coronavirus relief funds from the federal government, it's so good, and it's such a great opportunity to get that. But there is nothing free about grants, as I like to say. They require a significant amount of work, and so we really are looking forward to the new system helping us track that better. So we're not chasing so much and kind of after the fact coming up with what those requirements were and figuring it out. So we hope that will help a lot. We're looking forward to all of it.
Well, that helped us back in. One of the things that I know that we've oftentimes dealt with, and I think every school district does, is the idea of these grants also sort of tapering off and ending. Will we have a better opportunity to kind of know where those warning tracks are, so that budget can kind of work on if we're going to keep that money going or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've always had an ability to do that, right? But it's such a manual thing, and we just think about it on an annual basis. This will give us much more clarity into the big picture for each grant, right? Because they're all different and everyone has its own rules. So you can set it up so that, if it's a 2.5-year grant or it sunsets in 2024 or whatever the case is, it will give us a much better handle on where those dollars are and how we need to go after and make sure that we're spending them and taking advantage of all of them.
Perfect. Thank you. Amanda, I think you're going to talk to us about supply chain management, which is so important, knowing what all's in that warehouse and being able to get it to the right places. I mean, that's a lot more difficult than I think a lot of people realize, right?
You bet. Yes, it's really exciting, some of the changes coming with this new system for us. It's really going to bring ease of ordering to our office managers and to our schools and departments. Supply chain is all about, where's my stuff? I need things, and I need services and different things coming to my school. And so it's really, what's coming for us in this ERP is really a more streamlined system to get the things that you need. We're going to have a lot more visibility when someone goes to shop in our requisition center. It's going to be a little bit more like an Amazon type of experience, where they'll see pictures of the things that are available in our warehouse, and they'll really be able to make better decisions about what they're getting, and make sure they're not ordering the wrong thing. And I think the other thing that's really going to be cool about this is the automated approvals that'll go into that requesting of things. You'll be able to see what we have and then send your request through an approval process. And then some of the other new stuff that's coming is some new P-card processes. So when people go and they use their P-cards to spend, they'll have a better interface to attach their receipts, attach their backups, send their what they've bought through an approval process. And then there's some cool stuff coming for our suppliers, people we do business with, a system for them to log into and submit the information that we need in order to be able to do business with them. And then lastly, one of the big things we're bringing up is a contract management system. So real-time contract processing and document repository for those contracts, and really just being able to keep better track of who we're doing business with, why, and what the money going out looks like. It's really cool.
Perfect. I really appreciate you giving us kind of a full viewpoint on that. I do want to remind everybody that we are taking questions this time. I'm actually going to try to get my screen to share properly here. Somebody give me I can't see you once it's up, but give me a thumbs up once you see my screen presented. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to try to get to the right place where I can actually see it somewhere here. This is what happens when you got too many things on your screen too. Well, anyway, you might be able to see it amongst the panelists there, but essentially we are accepting questions today. Bit.ly, that's bit.ly/BVSD Wake Up. We love employee questions during these things, so feel free to just send us, beam us a couple questions if you have one. We will bring it up with our panel today. And again, you can see all these beautiful faces, and one of the things that we're also kind of looking at is the idea of some things are going to go away during this too. I mean, we kind of talked about how this system will take on the needs of some of those things. But Justin, you want to kind of talk about a few of those areas that we won't see after this program's in place?
Sure. Yeah. Katie, I think mentioned a couple of them, so things like Apple Track, it will be kind of going away and bringing into the fold. Time Clock Plus, which is sort of a system out there that we've piloted. Certain groups have used it for a while. We've used it here in business services for quite a while, but that's a lot of time capture and leave requests and things. So that will go away and be brought into the system. Budget development software. So I don't know if Carrie Albright's on, but she would be the first to tell you, we use we have like a budget development software, and it's actually pretty cool, but it like sits on a machine in an office in a dark room, and then we use that to create estimates, and thankfully it works really well, but then it's not integrated at all with our system and world, and so going from one to the other, making any level of changes is really cumbersome. Over the years, we've developed all kinds of forms, and this is, again, not having a system that's truly integrated. We've really just tried our best over the last several years to provide new ways, but it just creates a world where you're constantly going to the website and finding this form and that form, and then how do you submit it? Do you email it? Do you go through a Smartsheet link or whatever? So again, it's a matter of bringing all that into one place. Amanda mentioned some changes with the P card. This is one where, right now everybody's probably familiar. Everybody that uses a P card would know that we utilize US Bank, and we utilize their system to kind of reallocate and add receipts and things. And, generally speaking, it works kind of well, but it also creates a significant amount of integration that we have to make sure we keep track of and make sure that nothing breaks. And then it's also just one other place for someone to go to, with a separate login, albeit too. So again, we're trying to bring that into one concise place. So if you're getting reimbursed for something, or you're, had a P card transaction that's where you use and you need to bring in information, you bring that all into one central place now. We just think that consolidation is huge. Reporting, I kind of mentioned before, like to get all the steps, all the detail in a certain transaction or area, you have to click on 7 different links. Those were built on these crazy forms, so we had like everything in the system, say in I just think of it as like a big database, right? And then we created all these reports on the dashboard, and they all had a specific purpose. And that just requires a significant amount of work to make sure that they don't break, and to keep them going and keep them live and make sure that nothing is broken. And then when someone lets us know that it is, we go fix it. But again, all that stuff will be all part of the same. It's all derived from the system itself, as opposed to a report based on something, which is a huge step. There's probably other things that are going away, but I did want to take a moment just to say one of the things that's not going away is Infinite Campus. And we think that that's good. One, I think we all love Infinite Campus. That's good, right? But I think it's important to note that this really won't impact significantly, say, parents and students and things like that. All the things that live in Infinite Campus will continue to live there.
I actually brought that up too, because it's when we were going through the website process, kind of a similar kind of deal. Website, the old website system was going away. If we were to stay with it, we wouldn't be supported. So very similar kind of situation. And I think that there's kind of a typical tendency when you're looking at systems to kind of go, can it meet every possible last need that we have? And so I'd love, Justin, you, or I don't know if there's somebody else that wants to chime in here, but the idea that, like, when we're looking at systems, we want to try to meet as many needs as we can and find a system that allows you to do it with only one login and, not get lost in 20 different, like you were saying, 20 different programs and all that kind of stuff. But on the flip side, Infinite Campus is really good, and so you got to kind of make those trade-offs and decide which things, are worth it standing on its own versus what things. Not everything can make everything in julienne fries too, right? Like, and when you do that, sometimes it actually gets worse. How do you make those kind of decisions when you're going through a big RFP like that?
I'm happy for anybody else to jump in, but I would say not very easily, because Andrew Moore has talked over the years a lot about the best in class idea, and Chris Bowie, you're on, and I know you are very familiar with this stuff too. But it's true that no single system will do everything well. And I've tried to take the opportunity recently to talk about we have to be at least cognizant and aware that means that certain things might not be the very best, but there's a ton of benefit in bringing it in, consolidated into the same system, right? So do you get like 2 more bells and whistles off of something by having a totally third-party system that you bolt on as a sidecar? Potentially, but there's a lot of benefit in having it. So it's finding that balance, and so our mantra is We're trying to consolidate wherever possible, but gosh, if something like that, like Infinite Campus is out there, they can't do that. We're not trying to replace that. And I see Chris on, so I bet he.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely want to go to Chris. And another thing we always have to consider too, Chris, is the idea that we are a school district. So, the idea of paying top dollar for every last thing that we do is not always in the cards either, right?
Absolutely. The RFP process, our list of requirements was about 1,500 lines long. And every single one of these has been evaluated as whether it's a must-have or a nice-to-have, evaluated for the benefit, the bang for the buck. Another big decision point for this system is its tech stack. And the ability, we've talked about systems that don't speak well with each other. The technology behind this system is really, really powerful, and it's going to allow us to have a better connection to Infinite Campus, bring some of that scheduling data back into the employee records to more easily do comparisons with what people are teaching, with what their endorsements are, and that are manual processes right now, querying 3 different systems to put things together. So the technology behind it really is going to help us in ways that are beyond just the improvements to the processes. We really think about this project. This is an opportunity that we only have every 15 or 20 years as a school district. And so we are really digging deep, looking at every process and trying to improve. Will everything be perfect? No, we know that. But this district will be in a much better place in a modern system, which really helps us develop a modern workforce, which is a skill set that is incredibly valuable, that will take us as an organization farther and provide some skills to people that as they move through their careers, that they'll have an experience of working in a more modern system.
I think that was a great way to put it. And that actually segues nicely to my next question, which is really the idea that in an organization, when a big project like this comes, the natural question that I always get from a communication point of view is, what is in it for me? Right? Every last employee kind of wants to know, like, what are the benefits that are going to impact me directly? And so I'd love to kind of let's talk to Robin about, what will people see? I mean, why will this be something that we're excited about?
Sure, that's a great question, Randy, and I'm happy to talk about that because really, if I'm honest, I am an example of one of those people at the beginning when I first knew that we were going to go through this transition that was saying, seriously now, my thought was not what's in it for me, it's that what is going to happen to me. And so I know that there are a lot of people in BVSD asking that question, but I will also say honestly that as I have spent a significant amount of time now learning about both why, how is it that we are trying to piece our car together with duct tape, to go back to the analogy that we started with, but also what really are the benefits for every employee, whether we interface with this system, this much or this much or this much or this much, depending on what our job role is. And so where I've landed in learning a lot more about this is, okay, yeah, this really is going to be so much better. It's going to make life so much easier for all of us because we are going to be more streamlined. We are going to be more efficient. It is going to be so much more like the type of digital interface that we are used to in many aspects of our lives. But, I've also spent time thinking about the fact that there's never a perfect time for change because that was my thought is, seriously, during a pandemic, what? But, in reality, there is no good time. There is no time where we all sit around and say, wow, right now is a great time for change. Let's undergo a big change now. But what we do know is that we do need in BVSD, in each of our jobs, the ability to be more streamlined and more efficient and spend less time being frustrated with clunky systems. And so I now have become a champion of, okay, this makes sense. But I also know that change is challenging, right? Change is hard. And so there's going to be a learning curve for all of us. And like I said before, the learning curve, depending on our role, is going to be this big or this big or this big. But when we get to the other side of that, what I really do predict now, based on what I've learned about all of this, is that we really will say, okay, yeah, this is worth it. And I have a suspicion that we're going to start to hear, well, why didn't we do this sooner? Because it really will be so much better. So, when I think about the big and the little ways that it is going to be beneficial for staff, teachers, and Lauren talked about employee relations, employee recruitment, but just the ability to be able to do so much of our work through a mobile app. Most of us are, or many of us, I should say at least, are used to utilizing both our time and our phones in a way to make us more efficient. I won't admit to doing things on mobile apps while I'm sitting at stoplights sometimes. But we will have the ability to use the digital systems to be able to access information in more readily. Employee recruitment, Lauren talked about that too. So it's about potential employees, but it's also about current employees. We hear a lot about payroll and workforce management because we know it's difficult. We know it's really cumbersome for those who are in charge in schools and in departments of payroll and workforce management, which is the whole tracking of personal time, tracking of vacation time, tracking of hours worked. All of that stuff is hard, both for those in charge of it and for every employee. And so knowing that that's going to be better and much more automated, and people aren't going to have to just figure out systems on their own and try to make them work, and they may or may not work well, and they may or may not be confusing, or they may have a system that works great, but it's not the same as a system in another school or another department. That's going to be great. I'm frankly looking forward to that. And, staff really are going to be able to make changes to things like paychecks, and, things like direct deposit information. We talked just briefly about that. Isn't going to be sent over email. You will be able to manage all of these types of communications and, things that we have to get done as employees, things that we need to address are going to be a lot easier to make changes to bank accounts, addresses, taxation, retirement accounts, all that kind of stuff through, one-stop shopping, if you will. One thing that I think is really cool, it's going to include a better system for maternity leave. And we're going to be able to track leaves much more easily, and that'll be less burdensome for employees. And so there's really a lot that once we get through this whole change process, once we learn how to do it and get used to the way it looks, used to the way it feels, I think we're going to be really happy we did it. There are just some of us that are still breathing a little bit heavily about having to learn that.
Yeah. I do want to mention just a quick PSA, since we've got, a good chunk of employees that are listening in, that I do want to say we have had a couple cases recently in which employees have had someone reach out to them and have asked them for personal information. Please know that the school district will never call you or our representatives and ask you for personal information. There's a lot of ways that we communicate with our employees and our folks that are in these areas do, but digital security is super important for us. And unfortunately, there's some folks out there that prey upon folks to give away their information. And unfortunately, we've had a few cases of that here. So I just wanted to mention that, sort of an aside, but something that Robin said kind of made me think of it as well. I do want to just go back to, I know personally, one of the things that's always a little bit frustrating, I never know how much vacation time I've got. And I'll talk to, Pato in my department, Patricia, how much do I have left? This kind of system will be an opportunity for you to go in there and look at it directly. So I think that's huge, that ability to kind of know where you stand with things without having to, consult, an atlas and a star guide and, try to figure out how everything aligned, kind of up-to-date information is really helpful. I don't want to make it sound like it was really all that tough, but sometimes, again, we were dealing, and I'm not sure how it is in every department, but I had to put in my leave with the superintendent's office, and then my person in my department was trying to track it. It gets complicated, and anyhow, so that kind of thing. I do also just want to mention that, I think Justin said it too, that we don't want to paint such a bright, perfect picture. When we do go through a change like this, change is hard. And so we do want to also, mention that these are things, Katie, that we know will have pinches, that areas in our departments, and there will be moments probably during this project in which you yell out, ERP out to the heavens and are frustrated that something's not quite working right, or not the way at least that you remember it's supposed to working from the past system or whatever. These are things that we're kind of working through, right?
Absolutely. And with any major change of systems, there will be pinches, things that we've done in the past that, we have a process for, we really like, that may no longer work. So a couple of systems we know that there will be large shifts in are the hiring process. Big change, but much better process. You'll be able to really track where the candidate is in the hiring process live time, and there'll be a lot more transparency than what we have now. But it will be a new big process. In addition, there are going to be changes around time and attendance that will impact people that do payroll a little differently. It'll streamline that process, but there will be a new process for both people who need to sign in and sign out because they're hourly employees, as well as the timekeeper at the buildings. There'll be changes in financial reporting and also in payroll. And one thing with payroll correction, it looks like there'll be a new process there. So some of the bigger changes are really going to probably most impact at the school level, the office manager. At the district level and our departments, there'll be really big changes, but those people have been working on the changes all along. But at the school level, it's probably the office manager and possibly the treasurer that will feel the biggest change in the systems. There's going to be a new integrated budget tool that can be leveraged to automate the management of multi-year budgets, which is super exciting. And also there's going to be an integrated project ledger and capital asset system to track the work process. But don't worry, my team is working very closely with the ERP team. Obviously, that's why I'm here and been part of this change process, is that we know with any big district change like this that we need to ensure our employees receive the support that's needed. And so we will begin testing the training or testing the system in the next couple of weeks, and then the training will really start in the fall of 2021 and go all the way through implementation, and continually we'll be there with them. There's going to be individual support, there will be group training, but we'll be there with you the whole step of the way.
Awesome. I think everybody appreciates hearing that. It's always more helpful when you've got support along the way. I do want to bring up a question that we got from Broomfield High School. The staff member asked, at another school district I worked for, they uploaded the pay stubs and our W-2s. Will that be available? Anybody willing to jump in and talk about I think we kind of talked about the ease of a lot of these things. And I know that is one of the things that we're looking at too, right?
Okay.
Justin, you're it.
Yes, we're super excited about that. We as you all know, because everybody here is getting paid by BVSD, let's hope. Right now we email your pay statements to you, right? And that's, not terrible. It's better than having to pick it up, I suppose. But they will go into, like an employee portal that everybody is kind of familiar with and is very easy, much more of a simple user interface and things to log into. And I think the idea that we're going for is you'll get a notice, an email notification saying, hey, pay stub's here. And then you can go into your secure portal and access it. I think W-2s are definitely in the works. They might be a slight delay because of some behind the scenes system changes that'll be a little more lagged. Like we talked about, January of 2022 is not the end date. It's the go live, and then we make some additional changes and improvements and monitoring from there. But yeah, we're really excited about that.
I think that nicely segues also into another question that we kind of talked about kind of the not so sexy but really important stuff that's going to happen during this. And I know that the idea of an email that carries your personal information about pay is probably less secure than what we'd want. And not to mention, I hear from IT occasionally about, if we're carrying PDFs, and it's pretty heavy in terms of the amount of storage that's required. And when you send it out to a billion, not in a billion, 4,000 something employees, it kind of adds up over time. But I know in this system, again, digital security is one of the primary things that we're trying to address. We're also looking at compliance, data reporting, COBRA, ADA. Talk to us about, all the things that this will help us to get kind of in line with, again, maybe not so sexy, but important.
It's where we put people to sleep, I guess, right? No. Yeah. I mean, this idea of being legally compliant, I know it's not very exciting to talk about, but I've got to say, I mean, we're a local government. We are spending taxpayer dollars. We have our open records requests. We just don't operate like a lot of other businesses. I mean, if you run a small restaurant or something, you can do, pretty much anything you want with your money. It's your money, right? You earned it. This is very different, and we have grant compliance. We're heavily regulated. We have an annual audit. We have the Colorado Department of Education coming in on a very regular basis, looking at how we do things. So not to mention the Department of Labor and IRS, which some of us like to be a little concerned about sometimes. So again, all of these things weigh in where we just have to do things the right way, and we're subject to so much scrutiny. And so I think when we think about things like timekeeping and paying people correctly in accordance with all the rules and regulations, one, it's the right thing to do, but two, it potentially puts our dollars at jeopardy. I mean, there are instances where if you spend incorrectly, whether it's with bad intent or not, I mean, you could potentially have to give those back. So we're kind of constantly being on the sort of defensive, but now hopefully more in an offensive way to make sure that those things happen well. And again, I don't want to go too far back, but you mentioned that data security, and I just think that's of paramount importance, and we just can't overlook it. I mean, the district itself is subject to fraud and risk and those kinds of things, and cyber attacks, and that has happened in the past. But as you noted, Randy, I mean, our employees are too. And you just think of all the different ways right now where, things are on pieces of paper. I remember Andrew Moore, our CIO, talking years ago about, how in the world do we make a banking change request by filling out a form? Just because I changed banks, like nobody wants that. And that's what we want, are systems that will help us do that. And the more that employees know that they'll never be asked for those kinds of things, that you would never submit an email with Social Security or anything like that in there, the more that becomes second nature, that we know that that's what's going on and that's the way the district operates, I think we all become a little more protected.
I appreciate it. I think that's right. You covered a lot of important ground. And again, I think even if it's not quote unquote sexy, the idea of how important it is for employees. I mean, I think all of us care deeply about, ensuring that we're not victims of the kind of fraud that's going on out there right now, both from a school district and from our own personal selves. I do want to, mention, that this system also, it will impact a lot of our things. Are there going to be areas in which it is seen in the more white community? Will there be something that parents or the wider, I mean, obviously, if we're doing a good job of taking care of our money, as Justin just said, that's a huge part of it. But is there anything else that we should be thinking about in terms of how this will impact parents or students?
I think we talked about Infinite Campus as the most primary notable place that parents would not be impacted, or students, and I think that's a good thing. I think one of the things that we are really so a few years ago we did a big survey, district-wide community parent, and one of the really interesting and common points of contention was all the different ways that you have to go to make payments for things, right? And so it's on 25 websites and 3 different systems and multiple logins. And so, I mentioned the RevTrack is one, which is a pretty commonplace, and that one, it will be kind of getting consolidated. But we're working where we have our friends in community schools that are operating different programs and have historically been on their own systems. Food service is, because it's so specialized, they're often in their own system, and they are for us. And we haven't figured out all that, but I think we're developing paths where we can move towards that, hopefully fairly soon. But generally speaking, again, this really shouldn't impact parents significantly, which we're pretty excited about.
Perfect. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left, and what I thought I'd do is kind of go around the team here and give you an opportunity, a couple options. You know, one thing that I think is completely amazing is just, again, the way that we're looking at doing business differently, or, you know, really looking at our processes. So, you know, that would be one thing. If somebody wants to talk about an example of what, you know, what you've seen as your team has been working on this, and, you know, the triumphs, you know, that kind of thing. The other option, you know, and I think Lauren had mentioned to me, you know, the idea of, you know, there's so many folks, employees that are out there that are part of this and are doing great work. I'd love to, you know, if anybody wants to give a shout out, or you can do both. You know, I'd love to hear those two things. So why don't we go around? Katie, do you mind if I start with you?
Sure. I would say something just from the professional learning side of the house that we're really excited about, and we've been working hard with one of our business partners, Public School Works, is that employees will be able to see their mandatory reporting training. So at the beginning of the year, everybody takes mandatory reporting, standard response protocol, and that data kind of gets sent over to Public School Works, and it's a little bit hard for supervisors to access. And so now a supervisor will be able to look at their employee's portal or at their employee's profile and say, oh, you've done all these trainings, we're really excited, without having to log into another system, Public School Works. So that's one thing we're really, really excited about.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie. Lauren.
So I'll, not to beat the hiring aspect of things, but I think, as you know, Katie mentioned, as far as from the managers, on the new employee side, a lot of times, you know, we walk into the HR office and we fill out all of our paperwork, and then we go off to our departments, and that onboarding process may not be as structured, or we may not really be clear on what we still need to do. So being able to know before you walk in for that first nerve-wracking day exactly what needs to happen on the internal paperwork side, I think is going to be a huge thing. You know, the other thing that I just think is important to highlight is all of us across the district are going to be impacted by this change. Is from changing your address, where currently you're having to come in and fill out a form or submit something and you don't know if somebody got it, to checking your pay stub, to looking for jobs that are available. The thing that really makes me excited, you know, as far as making a shout out, Randy, I think that everybody that has been involved in this process, including people that are providing that honest feedback, it's been huge for us. And I know I've been in the district for 17 years, and I spent half my career in a school, and sometimes it can feel like in the school nobody's asking, and it's so refreshing to know that we're asking people, and people are feeling like they've got that platform to really be honest and say where things are working and where they're not. And obviously we're going to have bugs, and we're going to all, you know, lock arms and work them out together. But I think really just everybody that's having an open mind and putting in the work to make sure that we get this set up where it meets everybody's needs. We couldn't do this work without you.
I love that you said that, because the idea, you know, really for us to improve, it's to make the work at our schools and in our departments easier. So, I mean, that, yes, the feedback from our team is so important. Thank you for everybody that's out there doing that. Thank you. Amanda.
Sure. There are a lot of people behind the scenes working on this, and I just really want to give a shout out. We have a really excellent Infor team of people behind us that are helping us make some hard decisions about processes. And then I really also just want to shout out to Maria Wilson, who is project manager extraordinaire. She's just been awesome in coordinating this work that's being done.
And you know it's a good project manager when she's behind the scenes, you know, kind of orchestrating everybody to help with the show. And I don't think you had to say a word, because everything went so well today. Maria, why don't we go to you next? What are your thoughts?
Thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you for that, Randy. Just again, shout out to this entire core team. You know, one of the questions that I was going to be prepared to answer was, are we on track? And we are on track because of the amazing core team and just dedication of people across BVSD. When I took this job a year ago and told people that I was going to have an ERP implementation experience, several experienced IT professionals said to me, this is going to make or break you. And I think that I completely lucked out with the teams that I'm able to work with, and specifically the core team, and my co-pilot Karin with project management. And so just a huge shout out to that team. We they have to see both in the weeds daily tasks as well as envisioning long-term goals for this project. And many people have been, I think Justin mentioned this at the beginning, working on this project for 5+ years. And it wouldn't be possible without the entire team pushing this project. So a huge thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I do think it is one of those kind of things. I think when it came up to leadership, I think the superintendent asked people, and almost everyone's experience in other places on ERP changes has been difficult. And so to see us being able to navigate this during difficult times already is really quite stellar. I think that says a lot about the team.
Yeah.
You mentioned, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can I give 2 more just really quick pieces of information? I just want to share that we do monthly show and tells. You can find more information about those on our website, and our website's just staff.bbsd.org/info. And it's, the show and tells are a great place to come and just get a feel for what we're doing. And then, of course, as part of this project, we're going to have training and different things throughout the fall. So we'll have more information coming your way.
Thank you. Maria had mentioned Karin. Karin, do you have anything that you want to add?
Hi. I just wanted to say one of my responsibilities is to track all the FAQ questions and poll responses that we have been getting. Both are available on our project website that Maria just gave you. And we have a dashboard for the core team. Your suggestions and feedback are always available for them to read and review and discuss. Some things are more front burner and some things are more back burner, but I just want you to know we are listening, we are reading your responses, and please keep sending those items in. Thank you.
Thanks, Karin. Judy, anything that you want to add?
That I can't ever find my mute button. I just want to, I guess, ditto on what everybody else has said. We do have a tremendous team working on this. We've been putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort to try and get this system the best it can be. Also, our leadership team has been really instrumental in getting a lot of these decisions made. They're hard decisions to make, and it's unfortunate that it has to be done, but they've been doing a great job of supporting us.
Perfect. Thank you. David.
I would just say I've gotten to know a lot of the people in business services and out at the schools, which probably is not a good thing because it means that we have a lot of customization, a lot of workarounds, a lot of tickets that need to be fixed. And in the current system, we keep it going. It does its job, as Justin said, but we do have a lot of custom solutions that means they're always fun to do, but you always have to maintain them. And one of the things that always pops out at me is when I'm working with somebody currently, we always say, well, this isn't going to be a problem in the new system. So I think that's a key thing. This isn't going to be a problem in the new system. Now we might have a couple other problems, but they'll be a lot higher level problems. They'll be, not down in the weeds, customized solutions with lots of maintenance and workarounds and all that kind of thing. So it's great to work with such a good team.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for mentioning that too. I think that's great. James.
Just in addition to what Lauren has already said with regards to HR, I just want to give a thank you to our benefits team, who's been working really hard in the background, as well as the rest of the HR squad, who's been giving us a lot of feedback on the way things they want to work rather than the way they work now, and as well as the rest of the staff here that you see on screen. They're all working really, really hard behind the scenes. In addition to doing our regular jobs, we're working probably, speaking for myself, 6 to 8 hours on this every day. So I just want to say thank you to everybody on the squad and everybody here on the call.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Chris.
Absolutely. So a couple of functional things that I think are really exciting from the finance side. We are doing a lot of work to refine and streamline our whole chart of accounts, and we're trying to align it with the state. And we have made up so much stuff over the last 20 years that I've been around, and unraveling that and the excitement that I'm seeing from some of our accountants. We have this chart and we operate all year, and then it's a huge lift to take how we've operated and convert it in a way that we have to report it to the state. And so trying to get to something that's easier to manage, that takes less manual work, is really exciting. Another thing is the timing. Right now we reconcile our bank as an example once a month. We have a nightly file, and the system's going to automate a lot of the reconciliation of the payments we make, where our staff will be dealing with exceptions. And I mention it because I think it's a trend that we're going to see in our processes. Instead of managing the entry, it's more of a review process to push it through. So it changes the lens on how we're looking at data and interacting with the system. And then from a standpoint of, just calling out something that I see it's pretty phenomenal is our communication through this project. I'm seeing, this is a perfect example, this meeting this morning. This is not something that we've typically had in my career here at Boulder Valley, where we're breaking down silos in a way between departments. I feel like our leadership team is really supportive. Thank you, Robin, Justin, and Catherine, Katie. Like, that sounded weird. I read your name on the screen. And Katie, change management, you guys are doing a really great job, bringing this to the forefront, instead of us just working behind the scenes and saying, here it is. I really feel like we're doing this well. And I think the support of Dr. Anderson is pretty phenomenal. Again, something we haven't always seen. So thank you to everyone that's working on this. It's a huge lift. There's a lot of stress. This is not easy, but I really think we'll bring it home, and it's because of the people right here.
Awesome.
So, thanks.
I think well said, Chris. Robin, anything you want to add?
Yes, actually, I would like to piggyback on a lot of what has been said, but one central learning that I have had during this process, and I keep having this learning over and over and over at work, it's that it's so easy to kind of discount the work that people do when we don't fully understand it. And what I have seen over the course of being involved in the ERP transition is, I always figured that the people on this call, worked hard doing important stuff, but I have been unbelievably floored time and time again at the amount of skill, effort, finesse, collaboration that I see the people on this call and all the people that work with them on their teams have put into making this as what has really been a smooth and smart and intentional process has been phenomenal. And so I've learned so much about what they do and what they have put into this to make this work for everybody else. And I just want to say thank you so much. And really, I feel honored to be included in this process, because not only have I learned a lot, but I feel like I'm able to honestly say to other people that this is going to be a great thing. It has been, and it's going to be a great thing for all of us. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Robin. And last but not least, Justin.
I know we're about out of time, and really Chris and Judy really spoke to this, but what came to mind immediately when you asked for final thoughts, in a previous life, I had the opportunity to see this happen as someone who audited a lot of other local governments, including school districts. And I've seen, at least from afar, these projects happen. And they're hard always, but a lot of times they don't go very well. And a term that I wasn't familiar with until I got here was project governance. And I had no idea what that really meant. And it's basically the structure that we put around from the very top down. There was a point a couple of years ago where a lot of people on this call, just with incredible passion and desire to do something good, were trying to move this thing along, and we kind of put the brakes on. And we had a lot of other people involved at that point, including Dr. Anderson, going to the Board of Education and talking about this, from our executive steering committee, bringing in someone like Maria. I think we understand how big this is, and we really are trying hard to make sure that it succeeds by having all of that structure. And I don't think that's the norm. And so to me, that's something I'm really proud of.
Thank you, Justin. And I do want to just mention one more time, Maria mentioned it, Copenhagen at the end, and I think it's important to do that because I really want to make sure to drive home how you can be participating in all this. The team here is providing show and tells. The information is right here. This is on the, I think it's staff website, right? And if you go down, there's the feature meetings that kind of talk about what all the topics are that are coming up, plus they recap what's going on before and have links off to those presentations. There's more information here, all the Q&As, as Karin was mentioning earlier. Definitely want to drive you here. As was said, the communication around this project has been stellar, and Maria takes a lot of the credit for making sure that has all worked well. So I want to give a shout out there. Finally, I do want to mention we do have 2 more shows left in this school year for Weekly Wake Up. Next week, we'll be talking to librarian teachers in regards to the work that they put in their schools, and really some of the takeaways that they've learned that I think we can apply, in future years. And then we'll be doing a big wrap up. Talking about, sort of what all has been accomplished this year, the things that you need to know going into next year. We'll have the superintendent join us for that last show on the last week of the school year, which I cannot believe is 2 weeks away from today. So thank you. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today, waking up early with us. I think the insight that you guys have provided, and clearly, I think by hearing all of your guys' voices and the work that you guys are doing, I think a lot of our employees can understand, just how much is going into this project and what this will mean for them. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And as always, I want to thank you, our employees. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for your partnership and all these things. We couldn't do it without you. I hope that you had a good Employee Appreciation Week last week, but that appreciation continues all the way to the end of the school year. We appreciate you. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week.